from Patrick Christie's on X. Hilarious. African man gives his own views and lived experience about colonisation. Lewis Goodall, a white liberal, shuts him down and cuts him off. Yeah, funny that, isn't it? The people that love going on about lived experience, when empirical evidence, common sense, and, just plain dull logic completely refutes everything they're saying, they love to go, oh yeah, but what about lived experience? I've got lived experience, so it doesn't matter what facts and data I have to say about it. But the second an African with lived experience comes on and starts disagreeing with the ludicrous juvenile worldview of an absolute plank like Lewis Goodall, well, he cuts him off, doesn't he? And he doesn't like lived experience anymore. I think Lewis, I'm going to have to press the button, Anna. Anna, Lewis definitely does not know the way.
You don't know the way.
Yes, I do.
Do you know the way?
I know the way.
You have to have Ebola to know the way.
Not only does Lewis not know the way, Lewis could fall into a bucket of tits and he'd come out sucking his thumb. Let's just listen to the call, shall we? Right, here we go. Let's hear what this contemptible little soy boy has to say.
Anyway, Sam is in Acton. Let's talk to him first. Sam, your views on Trump and Venezuela?
Many are claiming that Trump is recolonizing Venezuela. If recolonization by Trump means peace, stability, and prosperity, so be it. I would like Trump, in fact, to extend his hands and go to my native Africa. Many of the countries in Africa today failed states. They are sinking under the mountain of corruption and population explosion. This is causing a crisis that is driving millions to come abroad to look for a better life. We need to be recolonized.
Of course, Sam. Many would argue, including lots of rather eminent historians and economists, among others, that it is colonization, European colonization, that was at least a significant part of the contemporary political problems of many of the states that you were talking about.
Many would argue. Many communist revolutionaries would argue. Who's your font of all knowledge, Lewis? Noam Chomsky. I guarantee for every one that can argue that it's all the fault of colonisation, that Africa's poor, I bet you could find 5 that wouldn't, including probably the majority of normal people on the continent of Africa, like your man here on the telephone. But obviously, his lived experience is worthless when he disagrees with an out-communist, isn't it?
It is the opposite. If Africa was
Really? Yeah, really.
never colonized, where would we be?
Well, there were plenty of countries that weren't colonized. Japan wasn't colonized, and they're doing all right.
I like how he thinks that's a winning argument. They're doing all right. Japan was the colonizer. And how far is Japan away from the continent of Africa, Lewis? What has that got to do with the price of eggs, you brain-dead, sparrow-bone slaphead?
Well, they're doing all right, but not Africa.
Right. Well, there are countries which were colonized that are doing well and some that weren't and aren't, I'm not sure.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm talking from personal experience.
Yes,
I was there when the British were there.
I mean, America quite literally...
Yeah, I think now he's interrupted him. We don't do lived experience round here, Mr. Darky. No, you can't interrupt the soy boy when he's talking. It's unbelievable. What happened to lived experience, Lewis? Sounds like he was going to say, when the British were over here, we actually got an education and we had infrastructure and a good quality of life. And then when people who share your ideology, because they're all commies, aren't they? When people who share your ideology get in charge, all of a sudden it's corruption, starvation, and in many cases, ethnic cleansing. Weird that, innit, Lewis? I mean, surely you're gonna let him stick around, aren't you? This working class black man who has lived experience of living in the continent of Africa, surely you're going to let him hang around for a bit, aren't you?
Actually had a colony in the United States, in Africa, called Liberia, which has had plenty of problems. So I'm not necessarily sure that recolonization will do terribly well.
What has happened since the American and the British left Africa? In chaos.
Right, okay. Well, Sam, it's a view, and grateful for it. Let's turn now to Lisa Smart, who is a Cabinet Office spokesperson for the...
There you go. Let me tell you about Africa, you filthy communist. Sorry, mate. Sorry. Gotta go back to... Let's have a word with Owen Jones and see what he knows about Africa. I'll tell you what, let's ask someone who's never been within 2,000 miles of Africa what they think about Africa, as long as they agree with me and we vet them aggressively before we put them on the line. Nice one. So cheers for that, Lewis. I love that. Let me tell you, I went to Sierra Leone, and the rare people you met that were over 50, because it is rare, because it went from being one of the best countries in Africa to an absolute dust bowl when the British left. One of the rare people I met that was over the age of 50 said to me, "Oh my God, I'm so pleased the British have come back. It used to be amazing when you guys were here." And I broke his heart, bless him. I broke his heart saying, "Sorry, mate, we're here to kick the West Side boys' arse and then we're leaving, son." That's what we had to tell them. They were mortified. They were dancing on the beach when we rocked up. They were absolutely loving it. And when we told them we were leaving, they were mortified. That's some lived experience of Africa for you, Lewis, you absolute moron. He's the type of bloke who thought it was a good thing when Mugabe got put in. And Zimbabwe went from being the breadbasket of Africa to, a basket case in very short order. So there you go. That's the truth of the matter, but Lewis doesn't want you to hear it. As for Venezuela, let me just say this. There you go. It's been very difficult to get a decent gauge on what actual public opinion is in Venezuela. But if you ask all the AIs, you have a look on Google, you try and cite some contemporary sources, rough estimate is that 25 to 30% of Venezuelans are actually pro-Maduro, which, you know what that means? This is hilarious. First of all, it means you could make a legitimate argument that if 70% of Venezuelans despise him, then it's not a bad thing getting rid of him. But second of all, it means that he's actually twice as popular as Keir Starmer is, because he's at 15% approval. So not only do I think, who cares if the Americans invade Venezuela? Who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, as I've said, this whole global world order thing only gets adhered to when it furthers the agenda of Klaus Schwab and Keir Starmer and all the other maniacs that have this one world authoritarian worldview. Only when it suits them do they play by the rules. So I'm all for ripping up the rule book and seeing what the Orange Oracle has to say about things. How much worse can it get? How much worse can it get is the simple answer. I'd also argue that if everybody on the left hates the idea, I like it. It's a nice, simple worldview I have. If Ash Sarkar, Owen Jones, and Richard Bergnon and the squad think it's a bad idea, I think it's a good idea. Doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. If your party is dead set against it, I suggest maybe we should be all for it. Who cares? Got to rip the rule book up these days. Yes, Iraq and Afghanistan was a complete farce, but there's a new sheriff in town. And I think the very simplistic worldview of strongly disagreeing with everything communists tell you is probably the best way to go. If you disagree, let me know in the comments down below. And remember, Keir Starmer, 15% approval rating. So technically, I think that means we could also give a green light to the US Air Force strafing 10 Downing Street. We can only hope. Thanks very much for tuning in. See you all tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.